Howdy. My name is Nonat, and welcome to my deep dive into the Elf Ancestry for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. You guys really enjoyed the dwarf video. These stats do not lie. So you guys keep showing me numbers like that, and you will get this content pumping out once a week. I currently plan to do one of these every week, and a class deep dive every single week. On top of that, Tuesdays are the live play premiere, and then 2 other videos in that week will sort of be wild cards, depending on whatever I'm feeling like making. And then I take weekends off so I can get started on the following week's videos and not fall behind and also not drive myself crazy. I just wanted to say thank you all for all the support you've shown so far, and let's go ahead and jump in to checking out Elves. So Elves are surprisingly frail in Pathfinder 2e, having only 6 base hit points, either the lowest or tied for the lowest of any ancestry. I think Goblins also only have 6. However, they have a lot of ways to make up for this. Their movement speed is some of the highest in the game at base. So while they're fragile, again with an ability flaw in Constitution, they have a lot going for them in the finesse and intelligence departments. All elves also start with low light vision, and with that, let's jump into the heritages. First off, we have the Arctic Elf, which, like the Forged Dwarf of the last video, just gives you resistance equal to half your level against cold damage this time, and environmental cold effects are 1 step less severe. Cavern Elf is simple. You get dark vision. Not bad. Seer Elf is honestly really cool. You're just sort of inherently good at finding and detecting magic. You can just cast Detect Magic as a cantrip at will, which is amazing because it still gets heightened to half your level, so you get the upcast heightened versions of it for free, even if you're not a spellcaster. On top of that, you get a +1 bonus to identify magic and decipher magical writing. Whisper Elf just gives you super powerful ears, and you can use the Seek action to sense undetected creatures in a 60-foot cone instead of the normal 30-foot cone. You also get a +2 bonus to locate them if they make any kind of sound within 30 feet away. Woodland Elves are, unsurprisingly, really good in the woods. They can move at half their speed when climbing foliage like trees, and full speed on a critical success. On top of that, if they take the Quick Climb skill feat, they move their full movement speed on a normal success. They also don't need full cover while in the forest to take cover. They can always take cover if they are on forest terrain, even if there's no obstacle in front of them to take cover behind. In the Lost Omens Character Guide, which I am not forgetting about this time, we have the Ancient Elf, or as I call it, Overpowered. The Ancient Elf straight up just gives you a dedication from any multi-class archetype. It's important to note it specifically states multi-class, so you can't select anything from the APG, like the Beastmaster or anything like that. It has to be one of the 16 classes. But other than that, yeah, you just get the dedication, which just gets you ahead of everybody else. Desert Elf is the opposite of Arctic Elf. You gain half your level of resistance to fire damage, and environmental heat effects are a little less extreme. I don't really know why this one exists. I've never heard of Desert Elves, but if you have, let me know in the comments. There's probably something in the guide, because one thing I'm not going over in these videos, because they're already long enough, is that there is a ton of lore and different, tribes of elves, and it goes into all of them. So if you really want to look at all of this, get the Lost Omens Character Guide for yourself, because there is a ton of cool information in here. Moving on to the meat and potatoes of the Ancestry feats. First one is Ancestral Longevity. I love this prerequisite in that you need to be at least 100 years old. And it's kind of a cool feat. During daily preparations, you can become trained in any skill. And you can change that every single day. If one day you think, I should be good at athletics today when I'm usually not, you can do that. They also do point out, though, that since the boost is temporary, it does not count as a prerequisite for a skill feat or anything like that, should you level up while it's in place. Elven Lore gives you trained in Arcana and Nature. It also grants the Elven Lore skill. So you effectively get 3 trained skill proficiencies from this one feat. Pretty good. Similar to Dwarf Weapon Familiarity, there is Elven Weapon Familiarity, which is specifically for longbows, composite longbows, longswords, rapiers, short bows, and composite short bows. You also gain access to all uncommon elf weapons. Forlorn is for the edgelord, dark, everything is pain elf in your party. Watching your friends age and die fills you with moroseness that protects you against harmful emotions. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to saving throws against emotion effects. You also critically success automatically if you get a normal success. Nimble Elf, also known as the one everyone takes because it gives you 5-foot movement speed bonus. Starting the game with 35-foot movement speed is nuts, Paizo. Put this on a monk? Good lord. Otherworldly magic. You get an arcane cantrip and it scales with your level. The spell attack roll or saving throw will be based off of your charisma modifier for this spell. On page 447 of the Core Rulebook, it does state that any ability that gives you magic that doesn't outright say what the DC uses, it is always charisma. Unwavering Mean is honestly kind of underrated. I never hear anyone talking about this one. But if you're ever affected by a mental effect that lasts 2 rounds or more, you reduce the rounds it affects you by 1. So if you're affected by something that lasts 2 rounds, it only affects you for 1 round. Additionally, any saving throw against effects that would cause you to fall asleep are treated as 1 better. So if you fail against a sleep spell, you actually succeed. It does specify it only protects against sleep, not unconsciousness. Level 1 Ancestry feats in the Lost Omens character guide, we have Elemental Wrath. This one's kinda cool and isn't super unlike otherworldly magic in that you gain a cantrip that heightens automatically and uses your charisma modifier, but it's always the acid splash cantrip. The thing that's interesting is when you take this feat at first level, you decide if it deals acid, cold, electric, or fire damage. So the spell always functions like acid splash, but it deals the damage you selected when you took the feat. Kinda cool, getting a customized spell like that. Elven Verve is honestly fantastic. You gain a +1 circumstance bonus to save against immobilize, paralyze, or slow effects, and if you would ever be immobilized, paralyzed, or slowed for 2 or more rounds, you reduce the duration by 1. This, in my opinion, is just better than Unwavering Mean. Immobilized, slowed, and paralyzed are just more common than sleep effects. Share Thoughts is interesting in that it doesn't have access. These are prerequisites, and that only those ethnicity of elves can take this. And normally I'd say, GM has final rule over access, but rules as written, you have to be one of those elven ethnicities to take this feat. I personally don't really dig that, especially with the limitation on the feat itself. You can cast Mind Link as an innate occult spell once per day, but you can only target other elves and half-elves. I feel like that would just be cool for any elf. I don't know why they locked that behind specific types of elves. I suppose it's just for lore purposes. And again, as a GM, you can change any of the rules in this book, Rules as written, you have to be one of those elf ethnicities that I'm not going to try to pronounce. Mwalajai, Ilvarani, Voronoi? Wildborn magic, which this one is just access, so the GM can give it to you if you want it, is the same as otherworldly magic, but you get a primal cantrip instead of an arcane cantrip. I think I'd like this just for something like an elven barbarian, because it would make a little bit more sense. Woodcraft is kind of insane. As long as you are in a forested area, if you roll a critical fail on a survival check to sense direction, subsist, or cover your tracks, you fail instead. If you roll a success, you automatically crit succeed. So this doesn't save from normal failures, but it prevents critical failures and guarantees a critical success if you don't get a normal failure. Like, screw your ranger, this is just all you need. Moving on to the APG with Ancestral Linguistics, another one that you need to be at least 100 years old to take, and instead of taking a daily preparation for a skill proficiency like the first feat we discussed, this one allows you to use your daily preparations to prepare any common language and speak it for that day. This one's kinda weird, but I like it. I'm just gonna speak Dwarf today. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. It's really useful, honestly, if you find yourself in like a Dwarven city for any reason, just prepare Dwarf. That's really good. Elven Aloofness is pretty great because it plays on the elves' superiority complex, and it basically says, elves are better than non-elves, so if they ever fail to coerce you using intimidation, they critically fail. And if they fail to demoralize you, you're immune for 1 day instead of 10 minutes. Purely mechanical, I don't like this feat. It's very rare that an NPC will take the coerce action on a player, because that strips away some roleplay if the GM says, actually, they critically succeeded their coerce feat, you have to do what they say. The demoralize thing is nice, but again, rarely will you be in an encounter with someone who tries to demoralize you, and then 10 minutes later will try to demoralize you again. The only time this will really come into play is if you are encountering the same target multiple times in that same day, and they try to demoralize you multiple times. So overall, mechanically, not a great feat. Flavor-wise, I love it. And the final level 1 Ancestry feat, there was a lot for elves. Know your own. If you ever critically fail a check to recall knowledge about anything elven, you get a normal failure instead. I think this wouldn't have been super overpowered if it just bumped your success up one stage. A success is a crit, a fail is a success. I don't think that would have been too overly powerful, but I guess they just wanted to be careful. It's fine. If you really want to know a lot about elves, take this feat. Level 5 Ancestry feats, and this one's a long one. This is all the same feat. Ageless Patience. You can voluntarily spend twice as much time as normal on a perception check or skill check to gain +2 on that check. You also don't treat a nat 1 as a nat 1. Normally in Pathfinder 2e, if you roll a nat 1, you have to treat your degree of success as 1 less than it actually was. If you use Ageless Patience, that is not the case. So if you nat 1, but it's still a regular failure, it's not a critical failure. Elven Weapon Elegance. You get the crit specialization effect with elven weapons and anything in the elf weapon familiarity. Defiance Unto Death is kind of rad. Again, it's access, so you need GM permission, but if you would start your turn confused, controlled, or fleeing due to a failed will save, you get another will save against the same DC. Now, if you succeed, it doesn't get rid of the effect, but you become paralyzed that turn instead of acting against your own will. So rather than being confused and attacking a random target, you just stand still going, no, 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 no. I like that a lot. Okay, can we talk about elves just getting general feats as ancestry feats? Elven Instincts. You gain a +2 circumstance bonus to perception checks made as initiative rolls. That's just improved initiative. They got fleet at first level. Why did they get improved initiative here? God, that's really good. Forest Stealth. If you're an expert in stealth and you're in a jungle environment near something that you can take cover behind, for one action, you can simultaneously take cover and hide, all in the same action. So effectively in 2 seconds, you can just vanish. Wildborn Adept. If you took the Wildborn magic feat at first level, you gain Dancing Lights, Disrupt Undead, and Tanglefoot as primal at-will spells. If you selected any of those 3 as your cantrip from Wildborn Magic, you can also get a whole new cantrip. Ancestral Suspicion's pretty good. It's better at higher levels when these effects are more common, but you get a +2 circumstance bonus to saving throws against any controlling effect, like Dominate. You also get that bonus to sense motive perception checks to see if the person is under such a control. In addition to that, if you get a normal success against these effects, you crit succeed instead. Martial Experience is actually kinda cool, especially if you're like a spellcaster. Even if you aren't trained with a weapon, you still treat your level as your proficiency bonus. On top of that, when you hit 11th level, you become trained in all weapons. And this doesn't say anything about advanced weapons, so you become trained in all advanced weapons as well. Not too shabby if you're a class that doesn't usually get proficiency anywhere. Otherworldly Acumen is an upgrade of Otherworldly Magic or Wildborn Magic. You gain a 2nd level spell from that tradition you got from the 1st level feat, and you can cast that spell once per day. Additionally, if you just spend 1 day of downtime, you can swap that 2nd level spell out for anything else you want from your tradition at 2nd level. Now, one thing that I'm interested in, and I want you guys in the comments to let me know, could you potentially learn a heightened level 1 spell with this? For your 2nd level spell, let's say you had Otherworldly Magic, could you take Burning Hands at 2nd level as your 2nd level spell from the Arcane tradition? Personally, I think that makes sense. I think that would still count as a 2nd level spell, but I'm curious what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. And while you're down there, writing that comment, that whole response, yo, look at that. That's a good looking comment. You know, while you're down there, you're scrolling back up to the video, on your way back, hit that like button, it's right there, you're passing by it. Additionally, the big red subscribe button, it's shiny, man, it's right, you're looking at it, I see you looking at it, man, come on, no need to be embarrassed. Hit that subscribe button, smack the like button, let's get back to Elves. Tree Climber, you gain a climb speed of 10 feet. Wasn't there a 1st level Ancestry feat that just did this better? Oh, that was the Heritage. Oh, that was the Woodland Elf Heritage. I guess this is okay, but at 9th level, you know what? That's actually not bad. What I didn't consider is that if you have a climb speed, you don't need to make a climb check. Even Woodland Elves do need to make a climb athletics check. If you have a climb speed, you can just move that distance without rolling. Okay, it's better than I thought. That's actually not too bad. I just realized I went over 9th level feats. Screw it, let's do them backwards. 9th level on the Lost Omens. Brightness Seeker. Once per day, you can spend 10 minutes studying your surroundings to effectively cast Augury as an innate divine spell. For those of you who aren't aware, when you cast the Augury spell, you basically ask the GM, what would happen if we took this course of action? Like, if we go into the tomb, what's it look like? And the GM can respond in 4 ways. Wheel, woe, wheel and woe, and nothing. Wheel means something good happens. Woe means something bad is coming. Wheel and woe means both are down there, and nothing means nothing really matters if you go down there or not. If the result of Augury was anything except nothing, you gain the following reaction for the next 30 minutes. If you attempt an attack roll, skill check, or saving throw while on the course of action you used for Augury, and you have not rolled yet, you can gain +1 status bonus to the triggering check, or if the result of Augury was woe and you pursued it anyway, that bonus is a +2. That's a complicated way of explaining it, and that's a lot to go through for a +2. But it's kinda cool if you want to be that seer elf who can see the future, if you want to be Shulk from Xenoblade. Sense Thoughts. You need to have Share Thoughts, which was that feat with a bunch of prerequisite elf ethnicities, but if you take this at 9th level, you can cast Mind Reading as an innate spell once per day. That's really powerful. 9th level feats in the Core Rulebook, we have Elf Step. For 1 action, you step 5 feet twice. Now it's important to note that this is not taking the step action twice. It specifically says 5 feet twice. So even if you have some feat or ability that extends the reach of your step action, it does not affect Elf Step. Expert Longevity just makes Ancestral Longevity better. On top of being able to become trained in 1 skill that day, you can bump any skill you're already trained in up to Expert for that day. So you get 2 free skill increases every single day. And on top of this, at the end of that day, you can retrain any 1 skill increase. This means you can remove 1 level of proficiency from any skill on your character. However, you must apply it either to the skill you were trained in that day with Ancestral Longevity, or the skill you are expert in with Expert Longevity. Let me explain. Let's say you are trained in Arcana and not trained in Athletics. Well, if we have the Expert Longevity feat, we can become trained in Athletics thanks to Ancestral Longevity, and then bump up to Expert in Arcana because of Expert Longevity. At the end of the day, if we really want to, we can remove 1 skill proficiency from anywhere on our character. Let's say we're trained in Nature, we can erase that. We're no longer trained in Nature. And we can now permanently become trained in Athletics, or permanently become expert in Arcana. We effectively took the proficiency out of Nature, and we can stick it on either of the ones we increased that day. And you can do this every single day. That's really, really cool. God, elves have really complicated ancestry feats. For dwarves, it was just like, you're really good at crafting, also you don't like people. Oh no, and universal longevity is an upgrade of expert longevity. Once per day, you reflect on your life experience and change the skills you selected. Okay, simple as that. That one just makes you even more flexible. If in the middle of the day you need thievery, you can be like, oh, okay, hold on. Okay, now I'm good at thievery. It's okay. Yeah, that's cool. I like that there's an entire level up build for an elf who's just like, I know a lot of stuff, I just can't remember all of it all the time. If you give me a few minutes, I'll remember it. But I'll forget something else. And finally, Elven Weapon Expertise, which is the same as Dwarf Weapon Expertise. If your proficiency in a weapon ever goes up of any weapon, your proficiency also goes up with everything from Elven Weapon Familiarity. Wandering Heart, which is only for any elf that is from an environmental heritage. Arctic, cavern, desert, woodland, anything like that. If you spend 1 full week in any environment, your heritage changes to that environment. This is really cool. So yes, if you are a cavern elf and you spend 1 week in the Arctic, you lose your dark vision and you gain cold resistance. That's kinda cool. I dig that. I don't know if I'd ever take it, but that's really neat. We have 2 more feats to talk about. Avenge Ally. Once every 10 minutes, if you are next to a dying ally, for 1 action, you can make an attack roll basically with True Strike. You attack twice and use the higher result. That's pretty good. Again, especially for a level 13 feat, this is really niche and it relies on you being next to a dead ally. On the upside, it's not a reaction like one of the dwarf feats was. This means if you have a dying ally, you can run up next to them with your bow drawn and be like, I'll help you in a minute. I need to make this super accurate attack. It is weird that you have to be adjacent to the dying ally. I feel like within 30 feet would have been fine, but that's pretty cool. I like that. And finally, level 17 in the APG's Magic Rider. If you are ever the target of a teleportation spell that can target more than one person, it can affect an additional person. Effectively, if someone can teleport a group of people, you don't count against their maximum. On top of this, if you're the target of a spell, you and all other targets will never be more than a mile off target. That's really good, because I believe typically the farther you try to teleport someone, the bigger the margin of error gets. So if you have an elf with this Ancestry feat and y'all are getting teleported across Galarian, you're still gonna land right where you should. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Elves in Pathfinder 2e. I want to shout out again. Thank you guys for pointing out the Lost Omens character guide. I totally forgot that, but we got back on track with this video. I really hope you guys enjoy the Ancestry deep dives. I know I have a ton of fun making them. I know you guys have been enjoying the class deep dives and the Ancestry deep dives, so I really want to keep pumping those out. If only there wasn't a limit on how many heritages and classes there were in the game, but there are enough to keep us going for at least 2 or 3 months, so you can look forward to this kind of content for a while to come. I want to give a huge shout out to all my new patrons, because you guys have been killing it over there. You guys are amazing. The support does not go unnoticed. In the description, there are links to our Discord, where we hang out, talk about nerdy stuff. We are closing in on 200 members on the Discord, so I highly recommend you come join on up and talk to some really cool people. It's a ton of fun. On top of that, there's also links to my Twitter and Patreon if you want to support me. Honestly, a great way you can support me right now is to follow me on Twitter. I know not everyone here uses Twitter, but Twitter is honestly a really big place that potential sponsors do look. So even if we're closing in on 3,000 subscribers here on YouTube, when they look at Twitter and see 430 followers, they're more apt to go, about that. You're less than 1,000 followers on Twitter. You can't sit with us. So, if you guys can follow me on Twitter, it would be a huge help in pushing the channel forward to the next step. But thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm gonna go wipe all this sweat off, because it is super hot. Until next time, no nat ones.